Welcome to the Real View podcast, where Ohio Realtors connect you to innovators and influencers, keeping you with the real view of real estate. Whether you're a broker, agent, first-time homebuyer, industry leader, or just happen to stumble upon our podcast today, you can expect to hear tips, tools, tricks, interesting information, and so much more from the experts in Ohio's real estate game. Hi, everyone, and welcome back to the Real View podcast. I am your host, Allison Wiley. Joining me today, our special guest, his name is Chris Heller. He is a real estate industry icon, best-selling author, and currently serves as the Chief Real Estate Officer at OHO Labs. As a two-time CEO within the real estate industry, Chris is seen as a thought leader, helping to create a cohesive structure and adoption between real estate professionals and consumers. Chris also serves as an advisor and head of the editorial board for agentadvice.com, helping agents make crucial business decisions based on real data and reviews. Chris, welcome onto the show.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, we're so excited to be talking to you today about how we as realtors can do a better job navigating today's landscape, the ongoing change that we find ourselves in as being in the real estate industry. And we're going to dive into all of that. But before we get started, I would like to hear a little bit more about you. Could you share with us a little bit about yourself, how you got started in real estate, and what's led you to where you are today?
I'll do it quickly because it's a long story because it's been a long time. I got my license when I was a sophomore in college. So I was in 1983, before you were born. And these start off in residential real estate, start off fast. This was like it's even weird to say this. This was pre-internet. So I couldn't go to YouTube or anything else to learn how to do things. I just had to figure it out. My first year, sold 27 homes, became Rookie of the Year in San Diego. I hired an assistant at the end of that year, and 4 years later, I was selling over 100 homes and never looked back. After 26 years of doing that day in and day out, I took an executive role and joined Keller Williams and launched Keller Williams globally. So I was the president of the worldwide division. We opened Keller Williams in over 22 different countries while I was there. I ultimately then became the CEO of the company. After 13, 14 years there, I left, ended up at Loan Depot, which at the time was the second largest non-bank lender in the country, became the CEO of Mellow Home, their sister company. All the while, I've been very involved, like for the last 25 years, in technology and real estate technology. I was an advisor and an investor in several companies. One of them was the company you mentioned, Ojo. We, in 2020, bought Movoto.com. I joined the company full-time in 2019, and I'm now the president of it. We own and operate this portal, which is the fifth largest portal in the country. We're the largest privately owned portal, so everyone knows the four bigger ones, Zillow, Realtor, Homes, and Redfin. And we run a business similar to them, where we introduce the consumers on our site to great agents and great teams around the country.
I love that. Well, thank you so much for sharing a little bit more of your extensive career in this industry. And that's why I think, having this time with you today and getting this guidance and advice from you, is going to be great for our listeners to hear about, because you've just explained, you have kind of been and seen it all and have had so much success throughout your time in the real estate industry.
I should add, Allison, that I still have a real estate team in San Diego that is still listing and selling homes every day.
I love that. So you're still very much in the weeds of this all and have a good pulse on what's going on. So, yeah, that's awesome. Well, thank you so much for sharing a little bit more about your background. All right, well, let's dive into today's conversation, navigating this world of change. As I mentioned, it really seems like in our industry, change is constant. And I was having this conversation the other day, and it's like, is there really ever a normal period in real estate? I mean, we are just always, it seems like, experiencing these waves of change, always going through year to year different, ebbs and flows as things come up. How do we as realtors, where's our role in navigating change? Where do you see us fitting in as this industry is always undergoing changes?
There was a period of time where the changes were smaller or more subtle. But, when you step outside our industry and look at the world as a whole, that this is happening everywhere, right? This is happening not just in our industry now. The changes are not subtle, and I don't think even in the world, I think we're going to be in for a period of time, and maybe a long time, where this is going to be the new norm, where there is lots of change and lots of disruption. I think that I view change like time, right? You can't control time and you can't control change. The only thing you can control is how you react to it. So as agents, we have a decision to make. Are we going to be fearful? Are we going to resist it? Are we going to be scared? Are we going to be angry? Or are we going to focus on where are the opportunities? Because you can't do both, right? You cannot, I've talked about this before, you can't see opportunities when you're looking through a lens of fear, anger, and resentment and all those other emotions. So I think the most important thing is just the self-awareness of how are we viewing things and how are we choosing to view things. Once you make the choice and say, okay, look, there's change. What do I need to do to capitalize on? What do I need to do to find the opportunities? Then it's a much different conversation and it's a much different feeling than I don't like this or why is that happening or all those other things. You're either being affected by it or you're at the effect of things. And I like affecting things. I don't like things affecting me. I rather play offense than defense. So I think that's the most important thing that agents can do is first of all realize how you're viewing things and then make a choice and either continue to be angry and fearful and all those things or say, hey, I'm going to focus on the things I can control and look for the opportunities.
Yeah, I think that's really key, right? Being able to just, say, I know this is happening around me, but what can I do to get through this? And how can I focus on myself and make sure that I am, staying strong in what I believe and what I'm doing and how I can serve my clients every day. And one of the things that in regards to change that you've said or recommended to do around how we can approach this is really sticking to the basics. How can we really focus on that? And how does focusing on the basics help us rise to the top?
A lot of what we're talking about is mindset. And yeah, how do you have a strong and a good mindset? And one way to do that is it's a lot easier to do that when you're feeling confident. And nothing builds confidence like being productive and having success. So it's a lot easier to have a good mindset, when you have 10 listings and 10 pendings and 10 clients that are going to sign a contract in the next 30 days. Now, I know a lot of people watching this go, well, I don't have that. I don't have 10 pendings or 10 listings or 10 clients that'll sign a contract in the next 30 days. You can act like you do though. And you can act like someone who has that and make decisions like someone who has that. So, what does it take to do that? And to your point, Allison, it's the things we can control are our activities and our thoughts. And so if we're focusing on those two things, our activities and our thoughts, and activities are, what are we doing on a daily basis to be as productive as possible? And that's a whole conversation in itself. There's two things that impact productivity as much as anything and beyond mindset, and that is being efficient and being effective. And I talk about being efficient as systems and processes and checklists, right? Doing things efficiently, not doing things haphazardly or being in reaction mode all day long. Effectiveness is our skills. How much time and energy are we putting into building our skills? Are we role playing? Are we practicing? Are we recording ourselves and listening to ourselves? Those are the things that when you're doing those things, it's much easier than to do the activities that you should be doing because you have the confidence to go along with those activities. And when you do that, then things start happening. You start to build momentum in the right way.
When you're focusing on those things, it's almost like you're training your brain to act in a certain way. Whether you have those, 10 listings coming up or not, you're almost training your brain to think that way so that the actions and the things you're doing on an ongoing basis is really going to help you set up to succeed in that area, whether you have it right away or not. It's almost tricking your mind into acting like you have it and then it'll kind of come along. It's kind of what I'm hearing you say, especially when we focus on those things.
Exactly.
Yeah, absolutely. What mistakes have you seen realtors make when it comes to navigating this or focusing on being efficient? What mistakes have you seen come up a lot that our realtors should avoid?
That's a long list. And by the way, I'm included in that list, right? So I'm not,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah. When we think back to last year, March 17th, and there's a settlement is reached, and everyone finds out about it. And I just watched the reactions. So one of the mistakes I saw agents make was spending an inordinate amount of time and energy and emotion on reacting to the settlement. And it was really interesting. It was like watching a movie with a lot of scared and angry people running around, like a natural disaster, and everyone scrambling around. And then I saw another group of people in some real top performers and top teams that were just looking at and say, okay, if these are the new rules, then what do we need to do to win? And they started, like, on March 18th, they started preparing for the changes and started practicing and role playing. Okay, here's how we're going to handle things. And so when the changes went into effect finally in August, it was a non-issue for them. And then we had other agents that by August were still trying to figure out what was going on. And so one of the mistakes is just really paying attention to where we're putting our energy and what our thoughts are that are causing the emotions we're having. More tactical mistakes, back to your question, Allison. I want to say this in a way that will resonate the most with people. No matter what happens, and there's a lot of changes coming, a lot of things happening with technology that are going to be, I think, very, very exciting. But no matter what happens, it's still a relationship business. And one of the mistakes I've seen is that agents have gotten away from two of the most important things they should be doing on a daily basis, which is building new relationships, right? You have to be meeting new people every day. That's why agents and teams partner with us, right? Because we're introducing them to new people every day. And then deepening the relationships that we already have. We all have a phone with lots of contacts in it. Hopefully, we all have a CRM and a database with lots of contacts in it. But what are we doing to provide valuable information to those people and just being of value to those people on a regular basis so that those relationships are being deepened? And I see a lot of agents that aren't doing enough of that, and that's a mistake.
That's such an easy thing to do, especially when you're feeling that anxiety or that like, holy crap, our world's changing. There's so much, newness that I have to adapt to. How am I going to get over settlements? How am I going to get over COVID? That's such a great thing to focus on, I think, during that. If you're feeling that anxiety or feeling that stress, during periods of change, those relationships will withstand whatever is happening in our industry, right? So, when we focus on that, that's something that's always going to outlast whatever we're experiencing. Those relationships are never going to change. And the fact that we are in this people business and should be focusing on the people that we get the pleasure to work with every day, I think is a really great bit of advice in a way that we can kind of channel that energy and that stress that will be with us throughout experiencing times of change.
Yeah.
Okay, I want to talk. You just mentioned a little bit about the what's next as far as changes go, right? And it's funny because I often hear people say, "Well, when we get through this, it's all going to be fine." Well, when we get through this, when we get through this, and as we both had just talked about, change is ongoing, and it's going to be something that's going to be around, whether we like it or not. And you just mentioned some of the technological changes that we might see up and coming. Tell us a little bit about what you're seeing, what we should be keeping our eyes on, into the future, and what's next for us in this world of change.
What's next is that there's going to be a lot of automation, and it's going to be fueled by artificial intelligence. I don't think it'll be long before the way we interact with our CRMs is through talking to it, saying, "Hey, schedule me to call so and so, and I need a CMA for this property, and I need a reminder in 4 days to reach out to this buyer." Right? That's where the world's heading. I multiple times a week am presented with or pitched new products, and it comes. I just last night I was sent an AI role play partner platform where you can literally hit a button, hear the phone ring, the machine picks up and it's like you're talking to a human, and you can pretend they're an expired listing or a for sale by owner or do circle prospect, and you can role play and then see how you do and see how well effective you were in handling the objections. Tools to help us get better, tools to help us present better. So, as agents, you don't have to become an expert in all or any of this, but you have to be willing to engage with it and willing to leverage what you can to make your world better, faster, more efficient, more effective.
Yeah, that technology is out there. It's certainly coming. I think if you are feeling uncertain about it or unsure, try to keep an open mind. I think about it, and know that it's there to help you be better, as you mentioned. Not to make anything in our lives more complicated or worse. And you mentioned in the beginning too that emotion of fear, right, and how that kind of fuels us. What's your advice to agents who are fearful of change or feel fearful of new technology or new things happening? How would you guide agents who are fearful with change through this process?
You remind me, several years ago, my wife and I were speaking to a group of agents. My wife has a health and fitness business. And someone in the audience asked a question. They asked her a question about me. And the question they asked is that they said, it seems like Chris has no fear, or Chris is fearless. And she said, like, Chris is human, bleeds red blood like all of you. And everyone has fear, right? So the difference is that Chris moves through it very fast, right? So I think one of the things we can do is, if there's something we fear, run at it.
Hmm.
The normal thing, and maybe this is sort of a fight or flight type thing. And look, there's certain things that you should run from, right? Like, I'm in Montana right now. If there's a grizzly bear while I'm hiking, I am not going to stick around for that.
Sometimes those fear emotions are valid, right? And it's okay.
Yeah, but most of them are caused by thoughts we're having. So if you can identify the thought, like, what's the thought that has me feel this way, and then ask yourself, and this is the key point: ask yourself, is that thought real or not? Is it real? Is it reality? And if you don't know, ask someone. Ask someone for help. Hey, this is what I'm feeling. I'm feeling this way because I'm thinking this. Am I thinking I need a reality check? Is this really what it is? I've always had a coach, and that's always been, a person that you can go to and have those conversations. But the other piece about fear is, whatever it is, just deal with it fast. It's not going to, with time, it's not going to subside. In fact, usually with time, it builds more. It's that old adage, what you focus on expands. So that thing you're fearful of, the more you focus on it, the bigger it gets, versus just running through the door, running at it, dealing with it quickly. We've all experienced the situation of having a client that's upset, or whether we made a mistake or what, regardless of the reason why, call them right away. Make it your first call. Deal with it. Run at it. Don't let it impact your whole day or your week, and everyone else that you're dealing with, because you haven't dealt with that one thing.
Yeah, no, so true. And I think too with that is recognizing that and allowing yourself to experience it, because like what you mentioned, if you are fearful initially and then you just push it down or ignore it, then that's going to keep building up and it's never really going to go away until you address it. So I think that's a great bit of advice to learn how to recognize that, process it, but also do it in a quick manner so that it's not going to derail your whole day.
Yeah, or week or month.
Yeah, or even longer. Do you have examples of realtors or yourself or individuals that you've worked with who you've seen handle change really well? And could you give us some examples of ways that you've seen people really succeed when it comes to navigating waves of change?
But we partner with, right now, about 250 top teams around the country. We have almost 30,000 agents in our referral network. So we deal with agents and teams every day, all day long. Going back to the example I gave, how we operate and how we work with buyers and buyer representation agreements and buyer broker agreements, and how compensation's handled. The ones that I saw deal with it really effectively were the ones that said, okay, what am I going to need to do? What's in the new world? How do I need to operate? What dialogues am I going to need to have? What scripts will I use? What will my process be? And they started practicing that. They started role playing that. They started masterminding with others. And the ones that just said, okay, what do we need to do, are the ones that You look at now, it was a seamless transition for them. They're doing great business and they're growing and they're getting paid and all those things. And then I still see agents that are struggling, and these agents were not focused on what they need to do. They were focused on, why is this happening, and being angry or confused, or all those other things. You see it when there's a change, either that we caused or that happened outside of us. So there's a lot of agents out there that have been with brokerages or are with brokerages that are going to their brokerage is going to change to another brokerage, right? It's going to happen. There's going to be more consolidation. There's going to be more mergers and acquisitions this year. It's like, well, I don't like this, or why is this happening, versus, okay, what are the potential benefits? What are the opportunities? And then where can I, lean into those? It might be changes with, MLS's change, and associations change, and NAR change. There's new rules and new functionality and new features and new opportunities. Again, how are we approaching those? It's kind of the same way that we approach some of the basics of what we do, Allison. Like, if you think of an agent prospecting, right? And all right, I'm going to do some lead generation. What's your attitude, your approach, and your expectations before you start, right? Is it, I don't like doing this. No one's going to be home, or they are home. They're going to be mad at me. They're going to be angry. I called them. I'm going to be interrupting them. Or are you saying, hey, this is the day that I meet 3 people that need to sell a home, right? This is the day that everyone I talk to is going to be happy that I call them, right? Like, what's our attitude about that? And what's our approach? Have we prepared at the highest possible level to be successful? Like, have we literally practiced and role played and prepared ourselves? And then again, back to expectation. Are we expecting a good outcome, or are we anticipating a bad one? And if you don't think that impacts the conversations you have and your performance, then you need to wake up.
Yeah, definitely. And it almost goes back to what we were saying too, earlier about training our brain to think that way and to act like it's already going to happen, so that naturally, even in our subconscious, it's going to work towards kind of that mentality when we're already thinking this way and already, manifesting and, visualizing that this is going to be the outcome that we want to have. It really almost helps you and your mind do it automatically without you even having to think about it, which is really cool too. I want to wrap up, Chris, with just your final thoughts on how, we can get through this. This has been so great learning a little bit more about you and how you've navigated it so successfully and how you've seen others navigate it so successfully. Any final thoughts or bits of advice or any last things we want to emphasize or mention before we wrap up here today?
Yeah, like a couple of thoughts going through my mind about this conversation, and that is, focus on the things you can control and not the things you can't. It's really important to be aware of where you're putting your energy, and also who you spend time with. And I think more important now than ever before is what you watch and what you listen to, and who you hang out with. Look, at any of us that jump on social media, it is so easy to go down a dark tunnel very quickly. And why submit yourself to that? Why do that? Now, I'm not saying ignore things or anything else, or don't do the right thing or say the things that need to be said, but be really careful of where you're spending your time and your energy. And then look at your environment, who you hang out with, what you watch, what you listen to. Are you doing things that give you energy? Right? We've all had conversations with someone. When we hang up, we go, yeah, that was awesome. Like, that conversation gave you energy. And we've all had situations where either it's something we watched, a video, or a conversation we had, where it like sucks the life out of you. So, you got to learn to protect ourselves from that and make sure that we are insulating ourselves or blocking out those things that take energy, and spend more time on doing things that give energy. It's the books you listen to, what you spend your time doing. It has such a significant impact on our minds and our mindsets and our attitudes, and how we look at the world.
It really does, with almost out not even realizing it. I think being more aware and being more conscious of that, of what we're consuming, out there, that screen time, and like you said, you don't have to ignore it or, have your head in the sand with it, but just being aware of it, and especially how much time and energy you're giving it, I think that's really great advice. Have you seen, Chris, ways that change and navigating change and handling it really well has actually made people stronger agents, stronger people. Have you seen that change kind of being that factor that is making people better?
Absolutely. There's a level of being uncomfortable when you deal with change, right? Because it's different, right? What is comfortable is sort of status quo. So it's becoming getting comfortable with being uncomfortable. And anytime you do that, anytime you go through something that's uncomfortable, you grow. You get more stripes. You go from being a private to a sergeant to corporal to the colonel to the general. Like all those things cause you to build confidence, to grow, to learn, to have more experience. And those things all are really positive attributes. So yeah, Allison, I think that's sort of like another way to look at these challenges and say, okay, I'm going to do this, but I'm going to be better on the other side of it because I did this, or I'm going to be better on the other side of this because I went through this. And you will. Not like at the time you're going through it, does it feel good always? No. All right. We've all had big life things happen and bad things happen, and you don't necessarily want or wish for those things, but you do have a choice on how you're going to approach them and how you're going to go through them. And just having that faith and knowing that you will be better on the other side is a much more effective way of dealing with it. So yeah, there's examples. We see that in our industry. We see that with the people that succeed, and it's usually the people that are succeeding at the highest level. When we look around us, are the ones that have done some of the exact things we're talking about.
Yeah, I think so too. I think it can be such a positive and a blessing in disguise, especially like you said, you may not realize it when you're going through that process, or, you're feeling uncomfortable, or, having those growing pains, right? But then when you get to the other side of it, you can really take those experiences with you, and it does make you a better person. It makes you more resilient, and I think better at what we do. So, Chris, this was so great. I want to thank you again so much for joining me on this show, for helping us navigate this ongoing change, and buckle up because it's not going away anytime soon. And I think you've shared with us some great ways that we can kind of adapt and get used to that feeling uncomfortableness and get through it to make us better. So thank you so much for joining me today. I really enjoyed our conversation.
Well, Allison, thank you. Thanks for having me on. Hopefully this was helpful to one person.
Yes, absolutely. And to all of our listeners, thank you guys so much for tuning in. We'll be back with you next week.
Thank you for listening to The Real View. That wraps up today's episode. You can keep up with the latest on the podcast at ohiorealtors.org/therealview and on Apple or Google Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen. Have questions, comments, or suggestions? We want to hear from you. Email us at podcast@ohiorealtors.org. We'll see you next time.